There are sayings attributed to Jesus that feel like lightning, brief flashes that illuminate entire landscapes of consciousness. Yet among these radiant fragments, preserved in a text buried for nearly 2 millennia, there is one quiet mystery that scholars rarely dare to explore. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus never mentions hell. Not once, not even in passing, and that absence might be the most thunderous silence in all of Christian history. Imagine this: a desert cave in Nag Hammadi, 1945. A clay jar sealed for centuries inside, papyrus pages containing words that pulse with an ancient electricity. Words that sound like Jesus, yes, but also like something far older, as if echoing from the dawn of human consciousness. These sayings speak of light hidden within the human being, the kingdom already here, knowledge as liberation, and a startling omission: no eternal fire, no demons dragging souls into suffering, no warnings of damnation. It begs a question. Was the Jesus of Thomas revealing a radically different kind of spirituality? One built not on fear, but on awakening. In this video, we will journey through that possibility. We will unravel the historical threads that wove the Gospel of Thomas into obscurity, exploring why its message may have been too disruptive, too liberating, or simply too mystical for the rising institutions of its time. We will uncover the philosophical foundations behind its silence on hell, what it implies about human nature, consciousness, and our relationship with the divine. And more importantly, we will decode what this absence means for you, your inner life, your struggles, your purpose, and the hidden dimensions of your own spiritual power. Because perhaps the greatest secret buried in the sands of Egypt is not simply what Jesus said, but what he didn't say. Prepare yourself. This is not a journey into dogma or doctrine. This is a descent into the forgotten well of esoteric Christianity, a place where the kingdom is within, fear dissolves into awareness, and hell becomes something very different from what you've been told. To understand why Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas never once utters the word hell, we must first step back, far back, into the shifting sands of early Christianity, where dozens of competing voices struggled to define what the message of Jesus truly meant. Picture the world of the 1st and 2nd centuries, a spiritual crossroads where Greek philosophy mingled with Egyptian mysticism, where Jewish prophetic tradition intertwined with ancient mystery schools. In this vibrant, eclectic environment, the figure of Jesus wasn't yet wrapped in the fixed doctrines we recognize today. Instead, he was interpreted through many lenses: teacher, prophet, mystic, divine messenger, revealer of hidden knowledge. The Gospel of Thomas emerges from this diverse spiritual landscape. Found among the Nag Hammadi texts in 1945, it is believed by many scholars to preserve an early, perhaps even pre-canonical, layer of Jesus' teachings. Its structure is strikingly simple. 114 sayings, some familiar, some cryptic, some appearing like riddles, whispered through time. But unlike the later canonical Gospels, texts shaped during centuries of theological debates and political pressures, Thomas offers no narrative, no miracles, no death, and crucially, no mention of hell. Why? To answer that, we must look at how early Christianity was evolving. As institutional structures began to solidify, spiritual teachings increasingly emphasized clear boundaries: saved or damned, believer or heretic, heaven or hell. These binaries strengthened authority, clarified doctrine, and created a spiritual framework that was easy to teach and easy to control. But the Gospel of Thomas operates on a different wavelength entirely. Its worldview is deeply mystical, almost quantum in its simplicity. The kingdom is not a distant reward or punishment, but an ever-present reality. Salvation is not a transaction, it's a realization. And spiritual transformation is not granted from above, it is unlocked from within. Such ideas echo ancient currents found in Egyptian Hermeticism, Jewish Merkaba mysticism, and even the teachings of the Essenes. This was wisdom concerned not with moral policing, but with awakening, a kind of inner alchemy. In this philosophical universe, hell becomes unnecessary. If separation from the divine is an illusion, if enlightenment is a matter of perception rather than confession, then eternal punishment has no place. Instead, suffering is seen as the result of ignorance, sleeping through one's true nature. The Gospel of Thomas even suggests that the fire is not somewhere you go after you die, but something you carry within when you fail to recognize the light inside you, a psychological state, not a cosmic prison. This put Thomas at odds with the rising Orthodox movements, which were moving toward a structured theology of sin, judgment, and salvation, a gospel claiming that divine truth was found within every person, without mediation, without fear, without the threat of hell, was a revolutionary document, perhaps too revolutionary. So it was set aside, buried, forgotten, but not lost. And now, with the sands of time brushed away, its message reveals a radical possibility. Jesus may have been teaching a path, not of fear, but of remembrance. To understand why the Gospel of Thomas contains not a single reference to hell, we must stop thinking like theologians and start thinking like mystics. Because the Jesus who speaks in Thomas is not the Jesus of warnings and prophecies. He is the Jesus of revelation, one who speaks as if awakening a memory buried deep within the human soul. Let's begin with a pattern hidden in plain sight. Throughout the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus repeats a single idea in countless forms. The kingdom is within you, and it is outside you. The Father's kingdom is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it. This is the heartbeat of the entire text, and it reveals a spiritual framework in which hell simply has no role to play. If the kingdom is already here, already present, already woven into the fabric of existence, then salvation is not something waiting on the other side of death. It is a shift in perception, awakening from a dream we didn't know we were dreaming. Thomas's Jesus is speaking to human beings not as sinners lost in corruption, but as luminous beings who have forgotten who they are. Imagine this teaching in its original form. Imagine the shock of hearing a spiritual master say, "You don't need to be saved from eternal fire. You need to open your eyes." In this worldview, hell isn't a divine punishment. It's a state of blindness, and blindness, ignorance, can be healed. Let's explore this deeper through a metaphor that Thomas implicitly weaves: the parable of the hidden lamp. One of the sayings declares, "No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, nor does one put it in a hidden place. One sets it on a stand so that all who enter may see its light." This is not moral instruction, it is metaphysics. The lamp is your consciousness. The basket is your conditioning, the beliefs, fears, and inherited stories that hide your inner illumination. And hell is simply living life with your lamp covered, stumbling in self-imposed darkness. This teaching does not need hell, because it is not concerned with punishment. It is concerned with awakening. Another pattern emerges as we examine Thomas: the repeated insistence that knowledge, gnosis, is the key to spiritual transformation. Not belief, not obedience, not fear, but knowledge that awakens the soul to its true origin. Here lies the great divide between Thomas and later doctrinal Christianity. If awakening comes through inner discovery, then salvation is a personal journey, not an external decree. And if spiritual death comes through ignorance rather than sin, then eternity is not a courtroom, but a mirror. This is why Jesus in Thomas speaks as though addressing amnesiacs rather than sinners. He speaks to a humanity that has forgotten its divine ancestry. His mission is not to rescue people from hell, but to remind them of their origin in the light. It becomes clear why no mention of hell appears in this text. Thomas's Jesus isn't concerned with the afterlife. He is concerned with the inner life. His teachings operate on a different axis entirely, one where the main question is not, how do I avoid damnation, but how do I awaken the divine spark within me? And this kind of teaching is dangerous to institutions, dangerous to systems that rely on fear, dangerous to hierarchies that claim to control access to salvation. Because if the kingdom is already here, and if the divine spark already burns within every person, then no external authority can claim ownership of your soul. This is the spiritual revolution hidden in the silent absence of hell, and it's only the beginning. If Part 1 revealed the framework of a world in which hell is unnecessary, Part 2 takes us into the deeper chambers, where the Gospel of Thomas subtly redefines what it means to be lost, found, dead, and alive. Because here is the truth few dare to explore. Thomas is not silent about hell because it rejects punishment. It is silent because it redefines the entire spiritual landscape. Let's begin with one of the most enigmatic teachings in the text. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. This is the closest the Gospel of Thomas ever comes to the concept of hell. Yet notice the astonishing shift. The threat is not divine wrath. The fire is not external. The danger comes from within, from the untapped potential, the neglected soul, the unlived truth. This is a spirituality without cosmic villains. No demons, no fiery torment, just the consequences of inner stagnation. To the writers and thinkers of the early Christian world steeped in Jewish apocalyptic imagery, this idea would have sounded almost subversive. But to the mystics, Hermeticists, Gnostics, the wisdom seekers of Egypt and Syria, it resonated with an ancient principle. A person's suffering arises from their own unawakened consciousness. This is not punishment. This is cause and effect. Unraveling misconceptions. Thomas versus canonical teachings. At this point, you might wonder, does Thomas contradict the canonical Gospels where Jesus does speak of fire, judgment, and separation? Not necessarily. Many scholars argue that the fire in these teachings was metaphorical, rooted in the Hebrew prophetic tradition, where fire represents purification, not torture. Thomas takes this metaphor and transcends it completely. Where others saw separation between God and humanity, Thomas sees unity obscured by forgetfulness. Where others emphasized the afterlife, Thomas emphasizes present consciousness. Where others warned of outer darkness, Thomas warns of inner blindness. The Gospel of Thomas isn't softening Jesus, it is sharpening him. It presents a teacher whose words cut through illusion, like a blade, revealing that every human being contains both paradise and suffering already, not after death. Not in some future realm, right now, within the psyche, within the heart, within the unexamined corners of one's own existence, the paradox of the living Jesus. Another striking feature of Thomas is how it describes Jesus. It repeatedly calls him the living Jesus. This is not a title of resurrection. This is a title of awareness. To be living in Thomas is to be awake. To be dead is to be spiritually asleep. Once again, the categories shift. Hell isn't a pit. Hell is a state of spiritual deadness, living without truly living. In this worldview, the greatest tragedy is not eternal damnation. It is passing through this life without ever remembering who you are. And so Jesus becomes not a gatekeeper of heaven, but a mirror held up to the soul, reflecting back the divine spark each person carries. The hidden dimensions. There's another reason Thomas avoids mentioning hell, a reason rarely acknowledged. Hell requires dualism. Thomas destroys dualism. Light and dark are not enemies in Thomas. They are aspects of the same reality. Ignorance and wisdom are not warring kingdoms. They are conditions of perception. The divine is not separate from creation. It permeates everything. If all is unity, if the kingdom is already present, if the divine is within, then hell becomes metaphysically impossible. There is nowhere God is not. And if there is nowhere God is not, there can be no place of total separation from God. The Gospel of Thomas collapses the very logic that makes hell conceivable. This is not rebellion. It is revelation. Thomas is revealing an understanding of reality as a continuum of awakening, a spiritual spectrum rather than a cosmic battlefield. And this understanding is about to become deeply practical. Knowledge, especially esoteric knowledge, is never meant to sit untouched in the mind. The Gospel of Thomas is not a text you believe, it is a text you activate. So now we shift from theory to practice, from listening to awakening. If Jesus in Thomas never mentioned hell, it's because he offered something far more transformative, a path to inner liberation that anyone can walk. You don't need a priest, a temple, or a ritual sacrifice. You need only yourself, your attention, your awareness, your willingness to see. Here are the practices that embody the spirit of Thomas, translated into modern life. 1. The practice of inner seeing. The Gospel of Thomas repeatedly urges, recognize what is before you, and what is hidden will be revealed to you. This is not poetry, it is instruction. Try this exercise. At any moment in your day, pause and ask yourself, what am I not seeing right now? What assumption am I carrying unconsciously? What emotion or belief is shaping this moment without my awareness? You'll find that simply asking opens a crack in the automatic pattern, and through that crack, awareness flows in. Thomas teaches that awakening begins not with new information, but with a new way of perceiving what is already present. Do this 3 times a day, even briefly, and watch how your inner landscape shifts. 2. The ritual of uncovering the lamp. If the lamp is your consciousness and the basket is your conditioning, then awakening requires removing what hides your light. A simple ritual. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Place your hand over your heart. Breathe slowly, deeply, and repeat silently, let the lamp shine. You are not invoking anything supernatural. You are giving your subconscious permission to reveal what has been suppressed: creativity, intuition, clarity. This ritual is disarmingly simple and profoundly effective. 3. Recognizing the inner fire. Thomas suggests that suffering comes from ignoring what is within you. This isn't guilt-inducing, it's empowering, because what is ignored can be reclaimed. A practical application. When you feel agitation, fear, anxiety, or emotional heaviness, don't label it as a problem to fix. Instead say, "This is the fire I have not brought forth." Then ask, what truth am I avoiding? What desire am I suppressing? What boundary am I refusing to set? This transforms suffering from something pointless into something meaningful, a messenger carrying forgotten wisdom. 4. Practicing non-dual awareness. Thomas collapses the divide between sacred and ordinary, divine and human. To embody this, try the following. Throughout your day, whenever you touch something, your phone, a doorknob, a cup, pause and whisper inwardly, "This is also sacred." This rewires your consciousness. It dissolves the illusion of separation. It roots you in the kingdom that Thomas claims is spread out upon the earth. 5. Living as the living one. Remember how Thomas describes Jesus as the living Jesus. To be alive in the Thomas sense is to be awake, alert, present. Here is a simple practice to cultivate this presence. Choose any daily action, making tea, stepping into the shower, opening your laptop, and perform it slowly, deliberately, as if it were the first time in your life. Feel the sensations, hear the small sounds. Let awareness saturate the moment. This is living. This is awakening. This is the kingdom breaking through. Apply even one of these practices daily, and you will begin to understand why Thomas needed no hell. When your lamp is uncovered, when your awareness is alive, when you finally remember who you are, hell becomes irrelevant. In the end, the mystery is not that the Gospel of Thomas never mentions hell. The mystery is why we ever thought it needed to. Thomas pulls back the curtain on a version of Jesus who does not warn through fear, but awakens through recognition. A Jesus who points not to distant heavens or terrible punishments, but to the luminous interior of the human being. A Jesus whose teachings act like a key, one that turns not in the locks of doctrine, but in the chambers of consciousness. Throughout this journey, you've seen how Thomas reframes everything. Hell is not a threat. It's a metaphor for unawareness. The kingdom is not a reward. It's a reality already here. Salvation is not granted. It is uncovered. And awakening is not reserved for the chosen. It is the birthright of every soul. This perspective was revolutionary. So revolutionary that it was buried, forgotten, or dismissed for nearly 2,000 years. But ideas this luminous cannot stay hidden forever. The clay jar in Nag Hammadi didn't just preserve a text, it preserved a possibility, a different spiritual trajectory, a path that invites you not to fear divine punishment, but to rediscover divine presence. And now the question shifts from why Thomas omitted hell to what you will do with the freedom this omission offers you. Will you continue living with the lamp under a basket? Or will you set it on a stand and let its light illuminate your life? Will you remain in the sleep of old fears and inherited beliefs? Or will you awaken to the kingdom that Thomas insists is already spread across the earth? If the answer is unclear, that's good. Mystery is not the enemy of truth. It is the doorway into it. If this journey has sparked something in you, an insight, a question, a stirring in the quiet places of your mind, let it grow. Share your thoughts, your doubts, your revelations. Engage with the community. Explore further. Because the path of awakening begins not with certainty, but with curiosity. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is the real reason Jesus in Thomas never mentioned hell. He was too busy teaching us how to wake up from it.